Hello, everyone, and welcome to this presentation of a program I love much. It's a program named Issues. It's about questions that concern everyone in these days and ever, I would say. This program will be available on our platform, My Movies, from Saturday, the 21st of November at 2 p.m. and for 48 hours. We are here now with the directors of the six movies to know more about the movies and I hope uh, share their feelings, their experience in realizing those movies. I would start with Noah Aroni Maur, who's the director of Shut Up. And hello, Noah. Thank you for being with us.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Could you please tell us something, the plot of your movie?
Yes. So the movie is about a young girl, 12 years old. She has Tourette syndrome, and she has a very big difficulty to be acknowledged in school and with her friends. They don't see her tics as something that is turned terrible. They don't like it. So she has a very hard time to be accepted in the classroom. So she gets a little violent sometimes. So it's all part of the Tourette syndrome. And she gets kicked out of school.
Okay. And then we're not going to do any spoiler, of course.
Yeah.
And then something happens when she comes home.
She comes home, she wants to get rid of her tics. That's all I can say at that point.
Yes.
Obviously, it's a syndrome that you can't get rid of by all means, but she's trying to do that. And she has to accept herself. The thing is that at the end of the movie, she has to understand that she is perfect the way she is, with the tics and with her Tourette syndrome as well.
Yeah. This is a personal story.
Yes.
You okay that? And I would love to know how come you decided to make a movie out of it?
Okay, so when my daughter, Ophir, which is also the actor in the film, in my film, when she was 7 years old, she started having tics, and she started jumping, and she starts swinging, and all kinds of things she had. And we didn't know what that was because we didn't heard of that syndrome until then. But luckily for us, after 2 years, it's also almost gone, and so she wasn't diagnosed with the Tourette syndrome. But those 2 years were really very difficult and hard for us. And one day she came when she was like 11 years old. She said, "Mom, you're always writing stuff about everything and anyone. Why don't you write a movie about me?" And I said, "What? That's a really great idea. Let's do that." And we wrote it together. And then we got the funding, and she was 12 years old at that time. And we did the movie together, and it was really therapeutic, and it was lovely. And although she doesn't suffer from this Tourette syndrome anymore, there's a lot of people, a lot of kids that do. So it's really an important issue to raise.
So she has copyright.
Yeah, she has copyrights, definitely.
And of course, you wanted to talk about discrimination in school.
Of course, yes, because people don't understand that Tourette syndrome, it's not a cognition state of mind. She's not like retard or anything. She just have a neural situation. She can't help it. She can't do anything about it. And people should acknowledge her and be aware of the tics and just, don't pay attention. I know it's hard because it's a vocal tic sometimes, but she's just like any other kid, and people have to just accept her, accept everyone for who she is or who they are, and not discriminate anyone.
I think the movie is very effective in doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Noah. Then we'll talk a bit of the Bonefish with Daniel Ocean. It's a journey. It's a journey underwater. Would you please tell us more about this?
Sure. It's an animated short film that opens on a mother of two who suddenly collapses through the floor and finds herself in an underwater fantastical landscape. And she goes on a bit of a swimming journey where she confronts and is sort of consumed by a jellyfish of sorts. And in there sort of confronts the decision that she's making that day, which is to take the first pill of the medication abortion so as to not have her third child. And then she returns to her kids and they go home. And the plot of the film is very straightforward in my mind, trying to talk a bit about an issue that seems anything but straightforward. And as I sort of worked on it at the college that I teach at in Vermont in the United States, I learned from several of the international kids that it's very unstraightforward and very American ways that are very different from a lot of the kids, college kids who were working on the film, who found themselves kind of baffled by the American sort of political wrestling match over the topic. And so it's pretty straightforward, but on a topic that seems to stir a lot of feelings, a lot of political fighting towards an important issue in America.
Yeah, I find watching your movie that this journey is quite a journey of a sole person who has to make a decision, very difficult one, and this is plenty of symbols, I think, underwater. Could you talk a bit more about these symbols, fishes and animation?
Yeah. Developing kind of the set of symbols was part of the adventure of working on the film with the college students. And one of the ways that the political fight plays out, at least in the United States, is about this topic of sort of whether or not the fetus is the child who has rights along with the mother in a sort of social system that doesn't have many safety nets for the mother once the child sort of is born in the world, right? So one of the sort of friction points in the debate is on the anti-abortion front. People will say that sort of at the moment of conception or sort of shortly thereafter, you have a person on your hands who has a full set of rights. And then on the other side, on the sort of side of the mother and the choice of that moment is an argument that that what you're talking about is a fetus, which is not yet a legal person with a set of rights that should be held up against the rights of the mother, who is going to be this sometimes sole caretaker or most often primary caretaker of this child once they're born. And so trying to depict that as something other than a person seemed like a source for one of the symbols, right? How do you talk about this thing that is argued, whose humanity is being argued about, right? Sort of since forever and probably for forever. The symbol of being underwater in a womb-like space seemed pretty straightforward. And go ahead, yeah. And I also
found very moving the final scene when she has to answer to a questionnaire.
Yeah.
I quote, "How are you feeling after your abortion?" And the options are relieved, thoughtful, crampy, sad, empowered, conflicted, nervous, distracted, grief, and it's very moving that she picks all the options. I think it's very effective in representing her feelings that must be very, very demanding at that moment. Was this your intention?
Yes, it seems like she's sort of checking all the options, and she's also rejecting this notion that you should be able to declare some sort of tabulated set of feelings at the end of a complex sort of life moment. So it feels like a bit of a protest movement, which feeds into kind of the very complicated ways in which the political debate plays out, right? It plays out with data undergirding a lot of the arguments. And so some of these questionnaires are a form of gathering data so as to sort of build sort of notions of what the state of abortion is in America. The whole project began with me talking to a research scientist, a sociologist at the college I work at, who was trying to tabulate distances to abortion clinics in a recent fight that had caused several to close in the state of Texas. So if your driving distance goes up by 200 miles to the nearest abortion clinic, what can you say about the state of abortion in a large state like Texas, and a state that's sort of somewhat liberal and somewhat conservative, sort of right in the middle of sort of really heatedly arguing out that issue. And so those questionnaires then sort of feed into that. And then as a person confronting the questionnaire, you're also at the moment where you're becoming data, which is a kind of dehumanizing moment, right? You're becoming the next checkbox. Also at the same time, you're in the middle of like, I don't know, it feels related to this sort of moralistic and spiritual debate about what is the thing that got aborted. Is that sort of a person or a dehumanized thing or a what, right? It's yeah. So all that sort of feels connected to the checking out, crossing off of all the boxes. Yeah.
Thank you, Daniel. Let's talk about Lass uns vergessen. Let us forget with Marcus. It's you say it's a loving fight between having to let go and wanting to hold on. Would you tell us about these two characters?
Yeah, it's my film is about a couple in their best days in the middle of life, not at the end, and they have to deal with a rare disease which he gets, and he can see that he will die, and he will lose his autonomy. So he asks her to help him to die, even though he maybe has some more time. So the film is about how a couple in love deals with the fact that one of them wants to go. And yeah, the question is, can the relationship, is it strong enough to hold that, to cover that? Because I think love is also about helping the other one to become the one, or to go in the direction he wants to go, and help him to go this way, even if it's not my way, even if it's conflicting my way. So, and it's about an intellectual couple. So in the beginning, they try to deal with it on a quite talkative way and exchange arguments, and I think you soon get the point that it's not solvable on this level, and they try to deal with it on several other levels till she sees the point where she makes a decision to help him. finally to fulfill his wish.
Yes, it's really a struggle, love and death, because they love each other so much. She loves him. She doesn't want him to go, but at the end she knows it could be the best way for him, and this is very very moving. I think your actors, Judith Maute, I hope I spell it correctly, and Prodromos Antoniadis. They play Lena and Leon. I think they're really brilliant, and would talk more about how you worked with them. How did you choose them? How did you work with them?
Well, at first I have to say I did quite some research with a woman who went this way with her husband, and she also allowed us to shoot in her flat where the real story happened. So we had the opportunity of embracing the feelings of the real location, and we worked on the script together with the actors. We did quite some rehearsals and improvisations. And from that on, I always shot the improvisations and transcribed them. And from that, I made a little script. They learned the text. And from there on, we did another rehearsal was free for improvisation. So by that, we got deeper every time till we had a quite interesting script with dialogues who are original from the actors themselves. So, and I really like this way of working, of finding solutions for conflicts and also finding other ways around certain problems. Also, the actors had quite a nice journey because they discovered emotions and how you say actions which I couldn't have written on my own with just my head. So yeah, both of them are a part of Berlin Acting Studio, which is a network of actors, and Prodromos Antoniadis is the leader of this acting studio. So I think he's quite proud, and also Judith, that you see they did a quite good job.
Yes, definitely. I really appreciated your work with them and their interpretation. It's really effective.
Thank you.
Let's move to the delivery and Dogos. Hi. So your movie is about a man. Tell us about this man and what happens.
It's about a man who needs money for his daughter's cure and believes that only way to do it is to carry some refugees, but it doesn't happen as he imagined, because he's using a cold track, and when those refugees come, he sees that there are also kids in it, and they can't stand the cold. So he takes them because he thinks that this is the only way to go on, and things happen. So basically, actually, this story for me is about choosing. It's about making yourself believe that this is the only way to go. Because like choosing something, that is not the right way to do is a real big problem, I think. Because I mean, he believes that this is the way to go. He knows that this is not right to do. This is not the right thing to do, but he chooses that way.
Okay, and I find also very interesting that you didn't choose the point of view of the refugees.
Yes.
You about the migration, but changing the point of view. Could you please tell us more about this?
I live in Cyprus, and like we see refugee crisis, unfortunately, all the time. So I wanted to do a film about this, and I visited refugee camps and war victims to learn about their stories, and they're all different, really. And in the end, I didn't find that right to speak for them, to use their point of view, because I really didn't feel. I felt it would be, of course, it would be more effective and it would be much more dramatic to see this from their eyes, because there's so many tragic things happening in these journeys. But I didn't feel that right to speak for them. I really hope one day they will find the chance to speak for themselves. One of our executive producers and one of our actors is the war victim. She had this experience, and her story shaped this film so much. So I really wanted to look from another side. So I asked myself, so I live in Cyprus, and where are we in this story? What is our situation? So I find out that, okay, we are at these truck drivers' side. Unfortunately, we are the ones that taking those people to these tragedies, let's say.
Okay, and how did you choose the actors?
Actually, this is funny. Some of the actors are refugees, as I said. The other ones actually live in a village which these things happen a lot. So actually, the actors, like most of them, are not professionals, but they're the people who live in a village that these things happen a lot. So they see all these people coming and going, and some of them even had some legal problems with these things.
Okay.
So yes.
They are conscious of the problem.
Yeah.
Of the
They are in it.
Yeah. Totally involved.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Let's talk about In the Image of God with Bianca Rondolino. I love variety, so we have fiction, live action, and animation with Daniel, and now we have a documentary. It's about a rabbi, and I want to tell more and let you tell us about your movie.
Thank you. I'm very happy to meet you all over StreamYard, by the way. So the movie is a short documentary about a rabbi. His name is Levi, and he was born intersex. He's actually the 4th generation in his family to be born intersex. So the film is about just the story of his life, and starts with his childhood, because he, like the majority of intersex people, he underwent several operations and treatments to make him conform to one of to our binary vision of gender without his consent. As it happens most of the times, and then he finally finds a way to transition and accept himself when he studies the scriptures, and finds the LGBT people in the scriptures as well. So he's a very religious man, and he's a very strong relationship with his spirituality and with faith in God, and he's also an LGBT plus activist.
It looks like he underwent a very long journey to get to how we see him now. He seems a quiet person, a person that has reached the consciousness of himself. How was your approach to him to tell his story?
Well, as you've I'm sure you've noticed, he's very articulate and outspoken. So it wasn't hard during the interview to take the story out of him, because he was very happy and relieved to do it, because it's the first time, he told me it's the first time he has told his entire story in one shot to one person. So for him, it was very, I think, cathartic experience. At the end of the interview, we were all crying, all the crew, him and his wife, everyone was very moved. So that was definitely, I felt very lucky as a director to have a character that's so outspoken and articulate and eloquent. In the biggest challenge, I think, was in the editing, because the topic is obviously dear to my heart as well, and I wanted to make a documentary that also had that also was a political mission, but I had to make a big effort in not have him say what I want him to say, but to have him tell his story with his words, which is really the point, artistically and politically. So I just made a conscious effort to let his voice and his way of thinking of his story emerge, even if sometimes it's complex and sometimes can seem in contradiction with itself.
And why did you want to talk about gender identity?
Well, I was in Los Angeles, and I originally wanted to do a story about a non-binary person, because I generally wanted to research the topic and offer to an audience an alternative to the view of gender and of society as based on gender as binary. But I found him, and I thought, okay, this is the best character ever. So and through him, I learned about intersexuality and about the human rights abuse that happen everywhere in the world. And so I decided I had to focus on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Let's talk about silence with Sean. Let's not talk about the director, but the actor. That is totally different person, isn't it? I'm actually joking, of course, because you talk about yourself, but in which way? What was the reason to do this footage in the first time and then put it into a movie?
Yeah, so I didn't really set out to make a film or a film for a festival anyway. I kind of just, the first day of lockdown arrived in Glasgow and I was living on my own. So I really felt like I needed something to do with myself that excited me. So I just wanted to kind of gather some footage and maybe just share it, I don't know, on social media. But I was getting a lot of voice memos from my friends, which is something that's quite new to the UK. I think it's in Europe, everyone sends voice messages all the time, but we find that very awkward. But a lot more people have started doing it here now, which is nice. And then I started to kind of get excited by the idea of pairing voice messages with images that I was capturing. So for instance, there's a shot of some birds outside on a rooftop outside my flat, and one bird is chasing the other bird around, like kind of for a little while in the shot. And one of my friends had sent me a message about being obsessed with this man, and how he didn't want her, and that made her more obsessed with him. And something just happened in the edit, and I brought that voice memo and the image together. And then from then on, I got excited about what else I could pair in terms of images and voices, and the relationship between them, between text and image. And then the film just kind of came together naturally, and I began to manipulate the voice memos that I had received in order to explore loneliness, because everyone was in a position of loneliness that was messaging me. So they became kind of ghosts, I suppose, haunting me and also the images. So it was a really new thing for me to do. I've made a lot of fast-paced work before, because I've made work for like social media platforms, and I was really desperate to make something that had a slower pace and that could breathe. So yeah, it just kind of came together. My producer Alfredo from other projects kind of stepped in and helped me finish it, because otherwise I probably would have just sat on it for forever.
And
but, yeah,
what about the title? Why silence?
Well, I think I'm kind of exploring the voices that go on in our head, and I think actually I've been thinking a lot about the words that we tell ourselves and the words that fill our head, and how much that actually affects your everything, your health, your feelings, your identity. And the whole film is filled with voices and messages, and I thought about it made sense to me in the end that perhaps the whole film was a quest to achieve a kind of silence or a peace in my head, and to achieve a way of being able to just go to sleep at night and fall asleep, because I have quite bad insomnia. I've always I find it really difficult to sleep. So it was kind of about exploring a way to achieve a kind of peace, a psychological kind of peace.
Okay. And also music is very important in your movie. In which way?
Well, I kind of write music as well, and that's a way to. A musical voice is a completely different kind of voice, from conversational. And I think my favorite voice of mine, because everyone has, I guess, lots of different sides to their personality. Like the way I speak to my father is different from the way I speak to my friends and myself. But I think my musical voice is like my favorite, my strongest voice. So that was kind of the way to redeem the film, and to find the peace.
Okay. Thank you. I would ask you, every one of you, to address directly the audience for just a brief message, if you wish, starting with Noah.
Okay, so I think that my message is what the film is all about. Don't discriminate people because of how they look or what they do, or if they have some issues or problems. Just look inside the person and not the outside of the person.
Daniel, you have to unmute your.
Right. Thank you. I want to encourage anybody who's working on a film project and waiting for the pandemic to end or writing it out to keep working on it and write and stay busy, because I think it's really important.
Thanks. Marcus?
Yeah, what should I address? Don't kill your loved one. I really want to encourage you to find the love of your life and stay healthy. And I hope you have a great screening. And although it's only online, have a great festival. Thank you all.
Douglas?
I think it would be too wisely. Don't make yourself believe that like you have to do this horrible thing because you have to. I mean, this is so dangerous, this kind of thing.
Thanks. Bianca?
I would encourage the viewers to to me the one of the messages of Levi's story is that everyone should just disregard politics and ideologies and stay close to their truth, and the truth it's a right.
Thank you.
And will set them free.
Don't pirate the film. No, I think. Wow, this is stressful. Yeah, be careful with the words that you use with yourself, because actually, I think even things like sickness and illness can be greatly affected by the words that you tell yourself. And now, whenever I'm sick, I just tell myself, I'm just a little bit tired. I'll be fine. My body is amazing. My body will heal me. Instead of like, oh, I'm sick, which is this very Scottish thing to do and to complain and to moan. So yeah, stop complaining. Just get over it.
Okay, thank you. I really like this group. I loved your movies. I hope the audience will love them as well. They will be available from Saturday, the 21st of November, from 2 p.m. and for 48 hours. I want to thank you so much for being with us, for being part of the Torino Film Festival, and bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.